Hey everyone, Matt from Workshop Tinkerers here. This is my second try for this video because the last one sounded like crap. Sorry. Yeah. Anyways, I wanted to talk about my tower tensioners. As you can see, I finally got it, so I like using it. I've been testing it. I've taken this one off to show everyone how to install it. But with these tower tensioners, they allow me to remove the spring tensioner on the timing belt for the upright motors for the guides and reduce the bounce and lag produced by those spring tensioners and allow full speed movement of these motors. I've maxed out this. I've tried to get it to go 70 millimeters a second. It just doesn't have enough space to get up to speed while still staying within 3000 acceleration, and I can't remember what the jerk settings are, but that one won't matter all that much. Anyways, previous 40 millimeter per second print, 60 millimeter per second print, 80 millimeter per second print. They're pretty much identical. Actually, no, I take that back. The two new ones are a bit smoother, where you don't have that bounce coming in and causing lines to be slightly off. They do still have some defects, but less. So anyways, how to install this. First you remove your bearings from, first you remove the spring here, which I just did when it was installed. I believe it was installed in this direction. I just went in with a pair of needle nose, grab just the wire and twist back, and then it'll just pull off and come off. Next you pull your bearings off, which, sorry, my other printer just started up and startled me. I used a wrench. You take off the top two screws that'll allow it to lift up, and that gets you, lets you get a wrench in here to get to the back side, and it's an Allen wrench to take it off. The tensioner arm that I am using does allow for these to be reused. They do need you to get rid of this little tiny crappy washer and put a large washer on. Otherwise the belt will just rub through this tensioner. I am going to be using this idler bearing. It's a T2 toothed idler bearing. It's you get them 5 for like $4 off of Amazon or AliExpress. Doesn't really matter. They both work. That it's the same width. You just need to add your own washer to this one, and it's a little bit more difficult to install because I don't like. I don't want to take apart the actual timing belt here personally, so that means that you have to assemble it within this small space here, and I figured the only way to do that is just push it up and put tension on it. You can do it. I did it with one of the tops with the bearings just to test. It's a bit of a pain in the butt because they don't all just sit there. Anyways, to install, this tensioner has one large hole, one small hole at the bottom here. That is so that an M3 screw, I believe it's M3 by 16 screw, will just hold itself in place. It's not held in by a nut or anything. That might come back to bite me in the future, but there's just so little space to work with, I didn't really feel I had a choice. And so far, this has 15-20 hours of prints on it with these towers, and it hasn't broken at all. The top part itself started off looking square and ugly and came in nice and neat. The hole here to hold the tensioner, I'll show you in a minute, is designed to have the M4 screws from the tensioners go in. There's a nut capture, but it's a little too small, and I don't want to reduce any more material just for strength purposes. that you can't get the nut on, but it doesn't really matter. It holds itself in place really well. Or I've been using a nail. Also, it has a second set of holes here, which line up with the second set of holes on the plate. It's an M4 hole, screw hole size, just threaded into the plastic. M4 by 6, M4 by 8. I think both will work. I don't have mine yet. They're on their way from probably China. I don't know. I got it off of eBay. But that goes in there. The old original screws go in the first set of holes quite easily. Let me make sure. Last time I put this on, there's some stuff in here. Let me make sure that I got it all out. Printing, because it's printed like this, then there's a narrow section of the hole partway up. You sometimes get strings. Just get rid of them. It doesn't really affect anything. There's not a whole ton of work that needs to be done by these little screws. You can also upgrade the screw length. A little longer won't hurt anything. Just to be able to hold better. Doesn't really matter. As I said, because once you put tension, the whole block will pull itself on. So having those screws there will help, but not having them, it'll still actually function perfectly fine. And just like when you first assembled it, don't over tighten. Also, for the tensioner, I forgot to mention, you need an M3 nut and an M3. I got an M3 by 25 screw there. That is actually what's going to be doing the tensioning. As I said, I've just been using a nail. I'll probably cut it down one of these days. And then actually, I found for mine, just tightening by hand is enough. You don't want it super tight. I just realized you can't see my hand there, so I'm just squeezing it to figure out the tension. And you don't want it super tight so that it still slides pretty smoothly. If you tighten too much, it will start to bind, because the metal rods will start to bend and not like things. So basically, as tight as it can go without it binding is what you want to do. It's actually a tiny bit too tight. And you'll notice if it's starting to drag on one side where you're getting weird results, just loosen it a little bit. The main benefit is not to put a ton of tension. This is roughly the same amount of tension that the springs put on it. But when it switches directions, previously the spring would give a little, and that allows some slop into the timing belt. This does not allow that to happen. Keeps the tensioner tight. It also, I was having a problem with, because of that slop, it would skip teeth on the motor itself, and that removes that issue. I can print, I've set it to just 80 millimeters a second, and whatever Simplify 3D tries to print it at, which is generally slower, but it's good. I also added a plexiglass panel here for my motor mount, and I think that's helped me some as well, because all my other pieces of wood, except I only have one left. So mine is moving pretty well, but I have noticed that the original motors had this thing vibrating off the bench. My new motors do not. It actually prints perfectly fine now without moving. It does have, you get a little bit of slop, but I'm going to fix that soon by mounting my board here, and when I figure out how I want my screen mounted up here, that'll take up the tension as well. So that's it for today. The parts will be up on Thingiverse. It's for everyone's consumption, or whatever you want to, that's the wrong word. Anyways, they're up on Thingiverse. Links will be below. Thanks everyone so much for watching. Keep tinkering.